All right, so financial freedom, right? Living off those sweet, sweet dividends. Let's say, oh, I don't know, $2,900 a month, passively rolling in.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Doesn't it? A lot of folks dream about that, and we actually found this YouTube video. A guy named John, he wants the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's got these 3 strategies for making it happen, which is what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack each one, break down how dividends work, the whole 9 yards, and, of course, crunch those numbers, see what kind of investment you might need to hit that magic number.
Sounds like a plan. Passive income is definitely a hot topic these days. People
Yeah.
are really looking for ways to make their money work for them.
Absolutely. And John, in his video, he starts with the basics, explains dividends with this really cool analogy. Imagine you're a part owner of a company, right? When they make a profit, they have a choice. Reinvest it, grow the business even more, OR.
Share it with the stockholders.
Exactly. And that, my friend, is what we call a dividend, your little piece of the profit pie.
Your reward for being a shareholder. It's like getting a slice of the company's success delivered right to you. And it comes in 2 main flavors: cold, hard cash, or you can reinvest it by even more shares, really snowball that growth.
Now, when you're looking at dividend-paying investments, got to understand this thing called dividend yield. It's key.
Absolutely helps you compare different investments, figure out if it aligns with your risk tolerance, all that good stuff.
John gives a simple example in the video. Imagine a stock, it's going for $100 a share, and it pays out, say, a $10 dividend every year.
Okay, I'm following.
So you divide that dividend, the $10, by the price per share, the 100. Boom, got yourself a 10% yield. Easy peasy.
Right, but remember, yield isn't just about the potential return, it also reflects the risk involved. Higher yield often means higher risk. Got to find that balance that works for you.
Speaking of different approaches, let's jump into John's first strategy. He calls them covered call ETFs, and he makes them sound like a fast track to some serious dividend income.
Covered call ETFs. Sounds a little intimidating, but they're actually a pretty clever combination of stock appreciation and dividend payouts. It all hinges on these things called call options.
Options, huh? Okay, break that down for me.
So a call option, think of it as the right, but not the obligation, to buy a stock at a set price, within a certain time frame, of course.
Interesting.
What these ETFs do is they sell these call options on the stocks they hold. It's like they're generating extra income on top of any gains from the stock price going up.
So it's like double the potential profit.
In a way, yeah. And get this, the ETFs, John talks about XYLD, OILK, EWZ, they're rocking yields around 11.8% right now.
Whoa, that's way higher than a lot of your typical dividend stocks, right?
Definitely on the high end. But remember, higher returns often come with higher risk. As always, those options contracts could expire worthless, and stock prices, well, they're going to do what stock prices do, fluctuate.
Right, right. It's a gamble, but a calculated one, hopefully. Did John mention how much you'd need to invest in these ETFs to hit that $2,900 a month goal?
He did. Crunch the numbers. And it looks like you'd need somewhere between $280,000 and $310,000.
Still a chunk of change, but way less than that $2 million we hear about with traditional dividend stocks.
It is. But you got to factor in those potential fluctuations. Past performance doesn't guarantee future returns, unfortunately.
True, true. So covered call ETFs, they're potentially faster, but what about strategy number 2, the REITs?
Ah, REITs, or real estate investment trusts. Think of it like real estate teamwork, pooling money together to buy and manage properties that generate income, like malls, office buildings, apartments, you name it.
So you're kind of getting into the real estate game without the hassle of, being a landlord.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. They're legally obligated to distribute at least 90% of their taxable income to shareholders as dividends.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Which REITs did John highlight?
3 of them stood out. Two Harbors Investment Corporation, that one's boasting a 20.3% yield.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah. Then there's Brandywine Realty Trust, clocking in at 19.9%. And last but not least, Orchid Island Capital, 19.4%.
Those are some serious yields. But I gotta ask, are REITs, are they stable? What are the risks we're looking at here?
Good question. REITs, they've done pretty well historically. Over the past 20 years, their average annual return has been around 10.8%. But they can be a bit sensitive to, the ups and downs of the economy.
Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Sure, like think about Brandywine Realty Trust. They mainly own office buildings, right?
Right.
Well, with more and more people working remotely these days, the demand for traditional office space, it's taken a hit in some areas. And that directly impacts their occupancy rates, which in turn can affect their profitability.
Makes sense. So it's not just the overall economy, it's like the specifics of the real estate market itself.
Exactly. So to hit that $2,900 monthly dividend goal with REITs, assuming that 10.8% average return, you'd theoretically need around $320,000 invested. But remember, that's just an average. Individual REITs, their performance can vary, and past performance isn't a crystal ball, unfortunately.
Right, right. No guarantees in the stock market. Speaking of which, John mentioned something about weekly savings, building up your investment over time, like slow and steady. That seems a little more, I don't know, realistic for a lot of folks.
Definitely. Small, consistent investments over time, they can really add up thanks to the magic of compounding. Might take a bit longer to hit that $2,900 a month, but hey, slow and steady wins the race, right?
Absolutely. Especially when it comes to building wealth long term. Okay, let's move on to John's last strategy. The dividend aristocrats. He called them like the royalty of dividend stocks.
Royalty indeed. These are the blue chip companies that have increased their dividend payments for at least 25 years straight. And they got to be part of the S&P 500 index too, just to add that extra layer of, well, prestige.
Okay, so they're the consistent overachievers of the dividend world.
You got it. 3M, Leggett & Platt, Walgreens Boots Alliance, those were John's examples. They've weathered all sorts of economic storms while steadily increasing those dividends. Now, their average yield might be a little lower, around 7%, but that consistency, that speaks volumes about their financial strength and their commitment to those shareholders.
They're playing the long game, huh? Steady and reliable. So, are they considered less risky compared to, like, the covered call ETFs or REITs?
They might be less prone to those sudden price swings, that's for sure. But risk-free? Not quite. Economic factors, industry changes, even company-specific issues, those can all come into play.
Makes sense. So even with these big established companies, you still got to do your research.
Always. No shortcuts there. Now, to reach that $2,900 a month goal with dividend aristocrats, based on that 7% average yield, you'd need around, let me see, about $500,000 invested.
Still a hefty sum.
It is, but hey, less than half of what's estimated for traditional dividend stocks to reach that same monthly income.
True enough. And like with any investment strategy, diversification is key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Right. Spread that investment across different dividend aristocrats, different sectors, all that good stuff. Helps manage the risk, potentially boost those returns.
So we've got these three strategies. Covered call ETFs, fast but risky, REITs, tied to real estate, potential for high returns but susceptible to economic wobbles, and then our steady dividend aristocrats.
Each one with its own pros and cons, its own level of risk.
And John's video, it's a great starting point, but it's clear that you really got to do your own digging, analyze those companies, look at their financials, think about those long-term prospects. It's more than just those initial numbers.
That's what makes it so interesting. We're taking those insights and really diving into the details, the potential pitfalls, all of it.
And it's so important to remember there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. Your financial goals, your risk tolerance, your timeline, all that matters.
Couldn't agree more. What's really cool is how John's personal story shines through in his video, his passion for financial education, helping others. It's a nice touch. Makes those complex strategies feel a bit more, well, human.
Yeah, it does. Makes you wonder about his journey, what led him to focus on dividends specifically. Maybe there's more to uncover there, more insights to glean.
Definitely something to explore further. Understanding the why behind those strategies can be just as valuable as understanding the how.
Absolutely. All right, we've covered a lot of ground, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to unpack within each of these dividend strategies. Where do we even begin?
What strikes me is how each of these strategies cater to different appetites for risk, different timelines. Covered calls, they offer that potentially faster track, but with higher stakes. REITs, you're tapping into the real estate market, but you're also riding those economic waves. And then our dividend aristocrats, they're all about stability and playing the long game, but it takes a bigger upfront investment. It's a diverse landscape out there, something for everyone, really.
It really shows you how important it is to know yourself, right? Your financial goals, how much risk you're comfortable with, all that. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to dividends or really any investing.
Exactly. And that's why digging deeper is so important. John mentioned in the video that the average person spends like $67,000 a year.
Okay, so what if we shifted gears a bit? Instead of that $2,900 a month, what if we wanted to cover like all of our yearly expenses with dividends? How would those investment numbers change?
Well, let's stick with our covered call ETFs for a sec.
Right.
To generate around $67,000 a year with those 11.8% yields, you probably need something like $600,000 to $680,000.
Still less than the $2 million dollars with traditional stocks, but yeah, a big jump from that initial goal.
It is. What about those high-yield REITs? Assuming that 10.8% average return, what do you think?
Let me see. Okay, so that'd be around $700,000, right?
Right on the money. But don't forget, those high yields come with higher risk, and we got to think about how those economic conditions could play out. Really got to understand those individual REITs and what they're holding.
Yeah, definitely got to balance those potential returns with a healthy dose of reality. Now, what about our dividend aristocrats? Mr. Reliable, how would that $67,000 a year translate into what we'd need to invest?
Let's see, with your average yield of 7%, you're looking at roughly $1 million invested to hit that annual income.
Okay, so no matter which way you slice it, bigger goals mean bigger investments.
No getting around that. But here's the thing. John also talked about this idea of time to financial freedom. He suggests that with those weekly savings, consistent investing, especially with REITs, you could potentially reach financial independence in, get this, 5 to 7 years.
Now, that sounds pretty appealing, gotta admit. But is that realistic? I mean, for most people.
It's a bold claim for sure.
Huh.
I think it's important to understand what he's assuming there. He's probably factoring in a certain income level, savings capacity, consistent market performance. And the market, well, it could be a bit unpredictable.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not as simple as setting a timer, right? It takes work, discipline, and maybe a little luck sprinkled in there.
It's a journey, not a sprint. But John's excitement really highlights the power of setting that clear goal, having a plan to get there. Whether you're looking to supplement your income, retire early, or just have that financial security, these dividend strategies give you a framework to build on.
What I like is that idea of taking control. Like, your money is working for you, generating that passive income so you can live life on your own terms. That's pretty powerful.
It is. And it's totally achievable. Right knowledge, right strategy, commitment, the whole package. John's video, it's like a spark, gets you thinking differently about money, exploring new paths.
He's really big on those consistent savings too, which, let's face it, that's easier said than done for a lot of people. It's a mindset shift, got to prioritize those long-term goals over, that instant gratification.
Absolutely. Building those healthy financial habits, that's what supports your long-term vision. Maybe it means adjusting your spending, finding new income streams, or even talking to a financial advisor to get that personalized plan in place.
It's a good reminder that financial freedom isn't just about the numbers, it's about the choices you make, the actions you take, taking charge of your financial well-being.
Well said. And John's video is a great resource, but it's just one perspective. There's a ton of information out there. Books, articles, online resources, even professionals you can talk to.
It's all about being informed, engaged, constantly learning, evaluating, adjusting as you go.
What are some things that have stood out to you so far as we've been going through this? Any questions popping up?
You mentioned earlier that covered call ETFs, they involve selling options, and honestly, that whole part still feels a little fuzzy to me. Can we dive into that a bit more? Like, how does it work? What are the potential upsides and downsides?
Of course. So when an ETF sells a covered call option, they're basically giving someone else the right, but not the obligation, to buy a specific stock at a certain price. It's called the strike price, and it's all within a set time frame. In return for giving someone this right, the ETF gets paid a premium. That's the income they make from selling that option.
Got it. So that premium, that's what adds to the ETF's overall dividend payout.
You got it. It's a way to boost the income they get from those underlying stocks. But here's the trade-off. By selling that call option, the ETF limits how much they can make if the stock price goes way up, higher than that strike price.
Oh, I see. So you could miss out on some potential gains if the stock does really well.
Yep, that's the risk. If the price stays below that strike price, the option expires worthless, and the ETF keeps that premium. But if the price goes above the strike price, the buyer of the option gets to buy the stock at that lower price, and the ETF's profit is capped.
So it's a bit of a balancing act, right? Get that income from the premium, but potentially sacrifice some of that stock growth.
Exactly. That's why knowing the specifics of that ETF's options strategy is so important. What types of options are they selling? What are those strike prices and expiration dates? Those details help you assess the risk.